YouTube channel following the meeting, and it shall be retained for up to 1 civic year. Whilst we endeavour to live stream all our public meetings, technical difficulties may sometimes prevent live broadcast. In these instances, we aim to upload a recording after the end of the meeting. All personal data will be processed in accordance with the Data Protection Act 2018, and for any further information on that, please feel free to contact us. Chair.
Thank you very much, and welcome to this meeting of the Local Policing Committee, to all those here and any joining online as well. Just at the outset, it's obviously been a very busy weekend for the corporation. It's quite nice to be dressed down in just a suit today. But I just wanted to particularly thank the police for all their support around the Lady Mayor's show and for Remembrance Sunday yesterday. I think from a policing point of view and for the crowd, it went off without a hitch, and it was a great display of the incredible organisation that the City of London Police have, that we were able to bring off such big and indeed we're proudly unplanned events so seamlessly. So please pass our thanks on to all those involved. Thank you, Town Clerk.
At item 1, we have received apologies from Madhush Gupta, Helen Fentiman and Benjamin Murphy, who's watching online. Are there any others I should be aware of? No. At item 2, declarations under the Code of Conduct in respect of items on the agenda. I have not received any notice of declarations of interest, unless any members wish to make one now. Seeing none, we move to item 3. Here at item 3, we have the minutes from the previous meeting held on the 16th of September. These are to agree on pages 5 to 12.
Any amendments? Nope. Agreed. Thank you.
At item 4, we have the action tracker. This is for information on pages 13 to 16, Chair.
Thank you very much. So the signage, we have an item on later in the debate. The member briefing on community engagement, I think that's still in progress for a future meeting. The engagement with City Belonging project, I see that there was a meeting on the 21st of October. So I wonder if we might have an update on how that meeting went.
Thank you, Chair. As we are all aware, in the last few months, which I will touch on further during my commander's update, there's been a number of incidents which required engagement here in the city. One such tragic incident being the Manchester Heaton Park attack on a synagogue with the Jewish community, and this is where we took on additional engagement here in the city for reassurance, and one such engagement has been with the City Belonging project. So we have a dedicated group which engages with the city's Jewish community workers based here, and we, through the police, through Mark Gettelson, were able to undertake that engagement. There was a good, healthy, constructive debate that went on, and we were able to pass on key messages and listen to the concerns and incorporate them into our policing plan. Thank you.
Great. I was just the things that we've spoken about here in terms of engagement with City Belonging project are really about, and I think it's really positive that we're able to do it around specific incidents, and it's good, you know, it's a very helpful resource, I think, for the police to be able to draw on. But it's that deeper engagement. I know we'll come on to talk about community engagement in another item, but it always struck me that the City Belonging project needs to be integral to that longer term community engagement. So I was just wondering as well if whether at this meeting in October, maybe no one here was at that meeting, but whether that sort of longer term engagement has been discussed.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry, yes, as part of the broader strategic engagement approach, our central strategy team and local policing colleagues have started ongoing engagement with City Belonging project, absolutely in response to your previous points about the importance of building that relationship. So that will continue.
Good, but can we keep this as an item, because I'd like to get more updates on how that's going and how that's informing, particularly as we have a review coming up on community engagement as well. So let's keep that item on the agenda. Erica, did you want to come in?
Just to kind of just reinforce what Kate has said, and also when I cover the community engagement strategic plan quarterly update, I will be giving a further update on how that is progressing and the work with the City Belonging project. So there is wider information to come with that information item on the agenda coming up next.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much. Good. Right. Thank you.
At item 5, we have a verbal update from the Commissioner.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Before we move on, I wanted to just ask, because we're still in the new sort of first cycle of the new committee structure, and I welcome this action tracker, but are we going to have a forward plan of the items sort of that and how they're going to be structured throughout the year that we're going to see to help us understand what's in scope?
Yeah, very, very happy to do that. We've set up monthly meetings now between the City of London Police Central team and the Police Authority team to look at the forward items right across the committees. So if it helps, Deputy Chair, happy to bring that through.
Thank you.
At item 5, we have a verbal update from the Commissioner. This is for information.
Thank you, Chair. And if I may, just off the back of one of the busiest weekends for us, Commander Khan's just going to give a bit of an operational update to the committee.
Thank you, and thank you, Chair. Just for future reference, that this will be a written update that I shall provide, given the circumstances and this meeting following a busy weekend. I thought it'd probably be best providing a verbal update. Since the last meeting in September, nationally and across Pan London, we have seen continued increase in protest activity and events across central London, which our City of London Police specialist teams have continued to support under the Operation Benbow arrangements. A number of high profile protest events which our teams have supported the Metropolitan Police, and in return they have kindly repaid the favour with assistance that we received from them this weekend for our very busy weekend under the Lady Mayor's show this year, and as well as the Remembrance Sunday. I won't touch too much on those other than to say that this weekend concluded, thankfully, without any significant incidents. In fact, on Saturday, aside from a road traffic collision that took place, very minor, the only other arrest that we took was for a normal business as usual breach of bail, which is, considering the fact that you have 300,000 estimated people lining up on the streets, 2 million people viewers, 7,000 participants. Well, that is a very, very safe and secure return for the weekend. So as Chair, thank you very much for your kind words. I will ensure they are passed on. In between, we have had concerns in relation to the criminal damages. This again relates to the geopolitical situation globally, as well as the national picture. Sadly, a number of businesses in the city over the last few months have been targeted. I'm joined here today by Detective Superintendent Richie Waite, who is personally leading on the investigations. We're pleased to report that the most recent incident, we arrested 2 people. Due to the ongoing investigations, I am limited as to what I can say, other than to say that those 2 individuals remain on bail under strict conditions. The matter is with the Crown Prosecution Service, and we look forward to a positive legal outcome in due course, and we will provide the update when that happens. Aside from that, Richard and his teams are undertaking a thorough investigations with complex video analytics and other forensic matters which continue to be explored for additional suspects to be identified. Just on that matter, we have now stood up a thorough weekly operation which Richard Riley here from the Police Authority Board attends or is invited to, and this will be our comprehensive response, looking at prevention, looking at intelligence information, looking at protect elements, pursue, as well as preparing ourselves with working with businesses. For example, this Friday we took a briefing to all businesses, not just for this weekend, but also on the background issues, but this remains a live and key concern for ourselves. Aside from that, our operation Swipe, which is a mobile phone operation, which we provided a thorough update on the last meeting, continues. So I will not add anything further other than to say that we continue to bring down significant reductions in mobile phone thefts into the city as we enter a busy festive period now, looking ahead to Christmas and New Year. We will see further intensifications, and I conclude by saying that Op Reframe, which is evidently one of our success stories here in the city, will be intensified. There will be increased number of Op Reframes between now, Christmas and the New Year. And in fact, this week and next week is my focus. I start the planning process for those particular operations as we look forward towards delivering a safe, secure and happy Christmas and New Year for all people here in the city. That's all my update, but I'm happy to take any questions, provide updates further if required. Thank you, Chair.
Very good. Any questions? That's a very thorough update. Thank you. And I know we look forward to talking a little bit more about success around phone thefts, which is very positive to note. And just when you provide the written report for future, it'll take account of the conversation we had last time about it being a bit more structured as well, I guess. Thank you. Perfect. Right. Thank you very much. Thank you.
At item 6, we have the Community Engagement Strategic Plan Quarterly Update. This is for information on pages 17 to 24.
Thank you, Chair. And I'll hand over to Erica to just take us through the highlights of this report.
Many thanks, Chair. So this is the usual quarterly progress and developments of the City of London Police and the City of London Corporation Joint Strategic Community Engagement Plan. The information on the current round of cluster panel meetings is outlined on page 19. The cluster panel started last week with Barbican. We are doing an online panel and an in-person panel this time. We have dramatically improved and tried to take away the learning from the last 2 rounds of panels. And now we're working to a standardised approach across all panels, whilst allowing flex to allow for variations in terms of community and engagement approach for those panels. We've also introduced a information briefing at the start of each of those cluster panels to give the community members and stakeholders an update on what crime has been happening, there's hotspot map in there, and also a breakdown of crimes and antisocial incidences. These are joint, they're jointly attended by both us and our corporation colleagues. And there again, we will be doing a full evaluation of this approach and looking to how we can strengthen and improve them during the course of 2026. Broader engagement activity is outlined on page 20 and 21 of the report, which gives you a full flavour of different activities going on right across the city, from things such as bike marking and phone marking events to coffee with a copper events as well, where people can just drop in and raise their concerns with their dedicated ward officer. We've also engaged in wider initiatives going on across the City of London Police, including Operation Swipe, Reframe, Project Servitor, and the work we have planned around the violence against women and girls. September saw the week of action focused on the Safer City Streets, where we took the opportunity to launch the Safer City bus. And work has started. Members will be aware that the community engagement plan was launched at the September SPPC meeting last year. We're now in the process of reviewing that, and we've taken the opportunity to build on the neighbourhood policing strategy and combine this into a community engagement and neighbourhood policing strategy. This will be a 3-year strategy from 2026 to 2029, and it will be underpinned by a delivery plan. We're wanting to this will be a joint strategy across us and the corporation as well, and we're wanting to engage members as much as possible, and we're proposing, we've got a provisional date for a membership engagement session to do a member briefing on key engagement events such as the cluster panels, but also wanting to engage them with this strategy and the formulation of this strategy in a true co-production approach. And we're looking to do that potentially on the 12th of December before the Court of Common Council. It will be an event open to all members right across the corporation, and it will give you the opportunity to feedback on the strategy, also into the cluster panels and look across the scope of activity happening across the corporation and the police in terms of engagement on how we can strengthen, improve and develop our approach over 2026 and the course of the strategy. That gives a brief update on the report, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Great. Before I invite questions, and I know that there are some, and I have a couple myself, I just wanted to understand the timetable. So after the consultation, when will the draft paper be submitted for this committee, for example?
So the timeline is we will be presenting the draft strategy to the February local policing committee. We're still awaiting the date for that, but the timeline will be we're working on it now. We've got a draft. We're working with our neighbourhood policing colleagues and other colleagues right across the police and the corporation to develop this. We're keen to get members' engagement, hence we've chosen that date provisionally on the 12th of December. But we are wanting to make it a co-production product where everyone has buy-in and a say to make it as strong and fit for purpose as possible. It'll also be a 3-year strategy as opposed to the year strategy we had for the neighbourhood policing strategy, and it will be underpinned by a very detailed delivery plan each year to reflect any changes and also that continuous improvement approach.
Great, thank you very much. I'll take questions from others first. I saw Deborah, then Ben.
I've got some questions and feedback, if I may. If I may, Chair, just run through. I was at the Barbican cluster panel last week, and one resident raised the issue of why we called it a cluster panel, because she couldn't understand really what the meeting was about. So she'd come along, but wasn't really quite clear. So I just wondered whether we could maybe consider doing something like, you know, what it says on the tin type of thing, and calling it an engagement or a liaison meeting, but just something to consider to encourage people to attend. The venue at Barclays on Moorgate was very good and welcoming, but it was just that bit further away from residents, from Barbican, Little Britain, Golden Lane, Tudor Rose Court, so that the turnout wasn't actually great from the residents' perspective. But I do know that it was kind of based in Coleman Street to try to encourage more people from that ward to attend. But apart from the member, Dawn Wright, that there wasn't anybody there really from Coleman Street. So in a way, it was a really good venue in a lot of ways, but really to query whether it was just that bit further away for residents to come to. I wasn't aware whether there was anybody there from the community safety team, so it was just to perhaps just check whether, you know, they're invited as a matter of course. And the date chosen clashed with so many civic and resident events. So it's really maybe whether when we're doing our forward planning, we could check civic diaries and residents' diaries before we pick for it. And the data, it was a very, very busy PowerPoint presentation. And a lot of the information was very useful, like the hotspot information, but you couldn't really read it. So it's perhaps just thinking a little bit more about the content of the presentations. And also, just to check, I wasn't really sure who the most senior member of the police was in attendance. I didn't feel we were getting perhaps the more strategic level of response that we might have had. But I might be doing somebody a disservice, so I'll I think the local ward officers did very well answering from their knowledge base. Thank you.
Ben.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to pick up on one of the points in the report on page 18, I mean, it talks about one of our recommendations previously, which was to hold one of the sessions during the day and one of those during the evening for residents in particular. Certainly in Liverpool Street, that has not happened again, despite the fact the report references that has now been delivered. So I think it's important that we reflect that properly in the reporting. I do in terms of the reporting itself, as we've seen it, I mean, we've got one page of sort of 5 bullets, certainly in the Liverpool Street cluster. It's way too high level. And one of the recommendations that I thought we'd agreed to look at was a working group to actually consider what is the type of reporting that is most useful to these cluster panels. I think officers can keep sort of stabbing at what they think is right rather than actually having a conversation with us on the ground about what people want to see. I still think that is a gap. And I know these things are evolving, but I think it would be really good if we could pick that up. I think we've started to get some detail. I also think, you know, and I keep coming back to the point on BTP, I understand it's not our area of responsibility, but cutting out BTP's data and engagement in key national transport hubs seems really short-sighted. I think we need to think about how we engage with them better within the cluster panels if we're really going to turbocharge them and make sure that both are aligned on resource allocation to make sure that we are addressing some of those issues. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Deputy Chair.
Thank you. I mean, I think I'd like to congratulate the police on the phone marking events, which I think were a really good aspect of the engagement. And you can see that I've got my phone marked myself as a result. And I just think that's the kind of thing that engages people perhaps more than a cluster meeting or an engagement meeting, whatever you want to call it. I think more of this kind of, active, where you get a clear benefit, I think is very helpful to offer. So thank you for that. And I also wanted to say I like, it's very encouraging to see the introduction of the City Safe bus. And I'd love to hear more about how that went. I can't see much data in the report about it, but it would be good to know if how that's going to continue. I think ultimately the goal of all of this engagement is to increase visibility, because that's the biggest single thing that people say to us as members. Oh, I just don't see the police in my area, and I just hear that time and time again. And so what we need as sort of members is a way of reassuring people that the engagement is there. You've got the opportunity to engage, which you clearly do. But I guess another thing that it would be helpful to know is what is there somewhere where we can point people to say this is where the dedicated ward officers, this is where they go on a daily basis. They're always in the ward on X number of days or X number of times, and you can just point people to that. And I think that would be very, very reassuring without them having to attend a cluster meeting.
Michael.
Erica, thank you for the report. They get better and better, so big improvements on that. So hats off to you on that, guys. For me, cluster meetings very fun. When I was reading through the papers over the weekend, I kind of, what's a cluster meeting? But I'm not here to kind of debate that point, but it would be maybe useful to think about that. A strategy going forward, one of the points I had was, how do you amplify, or how are you going to amplify this? Because I think the whole engagement piece is critical across the piece in terms of visibility. When you're not there, there are messages you can pass out. How is the new strategy going to amplify? And amplify maybe through business, because I didn't see an awful lot in there previously. So maybe just to touch on that side for me. And I'm attending my first cluster meeting on Friday, so I'll hopefully be able to give some more details as I listen in. I'll take your framework for listening, Deborah, to play it back, and I'd maybe like to play it back at the next meeting. But so good work so far, guys, and keep up the good work.
Great. I have a few questions. Sorry, a few questions of my own, just to add. Look, I think the fact that this item has had, I think, virtually everyone, every member of the committee sort of intervening on this shows the importance of it and the criticality of getting this right and getting this review right. I think it's a great opportunity. It's just an opportunity to remind members of the committee that part of the recommendations from the Peel inspection says that while the force has an engagement strategy for working with the community, it doesn't have an engagement plan that sets out how officers will achieve this. And the neighbourhood policing team doesn't carry out any evaluation of the engagement activity it does, so it doesn't understand what works well and what doesn't. And I think any the draft that we see at our next meeting needs to reflect, I think, that point in the inspection and come back with something that really gives, the report that we've got today is very activity focused. I share Melissa's praise that this is, it's great to see all the phone marking events and things like that really do help with engagement and visibility and show police actively working with sort of local business and residents. But it would be good to get some metrics around what this looks like. A couple of other things from me. Commander Khan mentioned the meeting with the City Belonging Project, particularly with the local Jewish community in the wake of the attack on the Manchester synagogue. And I'm sort of wondering whether, as part of this, Erica, whether we might think about City Belonging Project themed engagement sessions, where we invite members of a particular project to an engagement. In that sense, it would be good to understand how these the teams cluster panel meetings that we've started, what's been the success of them? Have many people sort of turned up? Have they worked well? So just some feedback on that would be helpful as well. And Commander Khan, I think if we could pick up, we had some email correspondence about the local community officers not getting back to a member. Now, not getting back to a member is particularly concerning, but also it's sort of, as I mentioned in our correspondence, it's sort of, if that's for a member, what is the experience for a member of the public, and how would we understand if that's the need for sort of some metrics around this. If people are contacting their local community officers and they're not getting a response, I'm concerned that we wouldn't know that was happening. So a lot to digest there. Apologies, Deputy Commissioner. Maybe we'll start with you.
Thank you, Chair and members. So just I'll try and cover off most of the points on that, and I'll bring others in on that as well. So just a bit of a reminder, if that's okay. So there's a load of great information there and feedback, which is good. I do feel, though, that this is exactly the kind of thing that needs to go into the process as part of the feedback, rather than trying to take those all in through committees, because I felt we got into a bit of that process. We've only been running that process for a year. And I've been here for 4 now. Time flies when you're having fun, as they say. And members do change and move into different committees. So we engaged extensively in this current plan. We took a lot of feedback from a number of members, and that was incorporated. And happy to do that again. And this is the process that we're doing. What we do need to avoid is 2 things. Is firstly to not end up in a constant cycle of trying to improve and change a model, because then we fall foul of never embedding it and being consistent, and that can be a danger. And the other ask really is that whatever we do has to be evidence-based. To your point around the peel inspection, Chair, very welcoming, because that is a clear evidence base on that, and taking in all views and opinions. So just a bit of a plea, evidence base, and making sure we don't necessarily need to change everything and come up with a whole new model, but we certainly do want to look at it, take all feedback and continuously improve it. Really good points around naming conventions. I think we use clusters. General public don't, so actually that's a great bit of feedback we can put into the system. Locations, we do our best with those. We struggle with attendance at the cluster panel meetings. We always have. Sometimes that is because people just don't want to come and they don't want to, and they haven't got issues to raise, genuinely. Other times there are better methods for people to do that. And I think the point around businesses that you made, Michael, is really important. We do a lot around businesses, and I don't necessarily think we reflect that in these reports to all our credit, really. Dates is a really valid point as well around civic diaries. Unfortunately, there is a lot of civic things in the city, so with the best will in the world, we will try and avoid as many of those as we can. The seniority at those is interesting. I mean, it shouldn't. I don't really feel those meetings should be at a strategic level, if I'm honest. I feel like they really should be about local issues at a very tactical level for people that they're struggling with, but they should have significant seniority to make sure they run well and people are getting what they need. So there's a balance there, I think. To your points, Ben, I'm not aware of the evening commitments, but if we've committed to doing one in the evenings, then we definitely should be doing that. So that's a fair point. And I think the working group, I'm not sure we necessarily commit to a working group. I think we commit to reviewing this process and taking all views and feedback, which is the process that's set out, and that should be incorporated. I think BTP are a really key partner for us here in the city for all the reasons you said, Ben, in terms of the strategic transport hubs. We're certainly not cutting them out of that. We engage with them very much operationally. Whether we would get regular attendance at cluster meetings is another question, because of course they are spread fairly thin across the country and also Scotland. So we can certainly try that and invite that. Whether we achieve it is a different question. Melissa, thank you for your comments around the phone marking. I think you're absolutely right. If people have a reason to go and it's beneficial for them, that's another way to engage, and they are very popular. The bus is also going well, and we can certainly get you some updates on that in terms of that welfare piece and prevention. And visibility, as you know, is a real key for us in the city. It is always a challenge because we are going very evidence-based now, and actually what the public want and need aren't necessarily always the same thing, and I don't mean that in any other way than to trying to explain that actually where our crime hotspots aren't necessarily where some of our residents live, and what we want is our police officers deployed in the areas where we have high crime and people are at risk, not necessarily in the areas of low crime where people aren't at risk, but because that's not being effective or efficient. But there is a balance between reassuring people and seeing police on the streets as well, hence cycle team and all of those kind of elements. So again, a balance there, but definitely take the point. And there is also research to show that sometimes seeing police officers and police vehicles can make people more nervous in their area because they suddenly wonder what's happening and what the issues are. So again, and I think some of that comes up around signage as well, actually, in the report there. And then just to Michael, clusters again, I think naming conventions is a really important point to feed in, and I'm sure Erica's got that. The amplification, we've really tried, but again, we should do what we can. Our biggest challenge with these engagement events has never really been the structure or logistics. It's actually getting people to them, and we can't, drag people off the streets into those engagement sessions. But actually, the incentive element is important, like the phone marking. So really important. And as I said, businesses, I feel we do a real lot around business engagement. Done it particularly around the threat of activists and activism. We do it particularly around big events. UMA does it, really well from that respect. But I'm not sure we represent that quite as well in this report, so we can get better at that. And finally, the chair, to your comments, Chair, absolutely around the evidence-based appeal, and that is already taken into account through our operational improvement board, where we're looking at our whole neighbourhood policing structure, our partnership and prevention team, and that is all well advanced, and the Commissioner is just reviewing that as we speak in terms of how we're going to progress that, and a lot of thanks to Helen and her team that have been working on that. I think we'll take away the city belonging engagement. I sense, Chair, it's an important point for you, and rightly so. So I think if we just take an action to go away and just have a look at that and the engagement that we do there to try and get back to you and reassure you. And finally, on the individual case of getting back to the member, and I know Commander Khan's briefed on it as well. In terms of responses, the neighbourhood policing strategy nationally is 72 hours response to a neighbourhood issue. That started for us measurements in July. We've hit that every month since July. That is measured through single online home, so people that come in through that. Which is our front end communication method. But what we can't monitor quite as detailed is, of course, emails that go into local ward officers. Yeah. I think that issue was resolved and was a diary issue and an availability issue rather than anyone being ignored. But certainly what we don't want to do is close down avenues between residents, members and our ward officers and just say it has to go for single online home. But at the moment, single online home is the metric that we measure in terms of response, and we hit that continuously at the moment. So that was probably as much as I was able to write down on that.
Right. Very good. I'll let some other officers. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. And it's my first meeting. I'm Phil Connor. I'm the Head of Community Safety for the Corporation.
Great. Phil, welcome to the committee.
Thank you. Nice to be here. Just in answer to a question that popped up a little earlier on as to whether there was community safety engagement. One of my staff, Claire, was there at the meeting last week. Claire Saltiel, her name was, young lady, brown hair, you might have spotted her. I don't think she had too much to add vocally, but she was in attendance. And we were cited on the plan for the sessions ahead of time, and we got community safety engagement at all of them except for one where a colleague from another department will be attending on our behalf because of a clash. But yeah, so we're cited and we're in attendance at all of them.
Ben, did you want to come back on something?
I was just going to say, Chairman, just to pick up on the Deputy Commissioner's point about crime data and the sort of moving away from a working group and suggesting instead just continuous improvement. Can we just get some clarity on what framework that would play? So is that just constant feedback into the engagement email? And how do we see the output of that to make sure that actually is delivering what we would like to see?
Yeah, so sorry if I wasn't clear. So I think what I'm trying to avoid is individual feedback coming through now. The review that we committed to do is what we've discussed. We will take feedback from members, from people that attend the clusters, from the police authority team, from our own officers, to look at bringing back in February what is our new strategy and what is our new model of delivery. So I'm not suggesting we're ignoring that or we're not doing that. I'm just trying to avoid that coming in piecemeal so that we can fully give our attention to it. And if the level of crime data in there, Ben, is something that needs reviewing and you and members of the community attending aren't getting what they need from that, then absolutely happy to take that on and have a look at that, to come back in February and see what kind of crime data we can present. And also, I think, to better signpost people to the crime data that they can already get themselves through our website. So more than happy to do that. And again, just from my past experience, just a plea for the committee that we have to agree a model and a delivery to move forward as a consensus, and it won't necessarily fit everyone's views, maybe not even ours as well. You know, we've all got different views within Culper around what we should be doing and delivering, and so I think as a group we feedback, we take that, and then we come back with a better model. So hopefully that's a bit clearer. Apologies if I didn't do that before.
Thank you. And Erica, before I bring you in, perhaps you could so I hear the consulting with members, which I think is very positive. It might be you and something working with Richard, how members of this committee and maybe the wider Police Authority Board can have a specific session themselves on feeding into that as well. Erica.
Yes, just to reinforce really what the Deputy Commissioner's just said, that day we're looking at on the 10th of December will be open to all members right across the corporation, not just the police authority. We will be focusing as well on those cluster panels. We've picked that date specifically in terms of the development of the strategy, but also it comes after that round, the current round of cluster panels. We'll be also doing some online survey work with members to give them the opportunity to kind of feedback these ideas. But to echo what the Deputy Commissioner's just said, these are very much evolution. We are not looking at throwing everything away. We're looking at what worked, what could work better. There's a lot of learning already from the Barbican panel that happened earlier in the week. It was the first time that the information and data had been presented. I think there is a better way of doing that, certainly in a more digestible form. So, like I say, it's about that continuous improvement. It's about that evolution of the cluster panel approach, but it is also ensuring you have a voice as members in that, and your views are reflected in that continuous improvement approach. So there will be opportunities, as many ways as we can think of. Like I say, we've got that day penciled in on the 12th of December, and we will be doing a formal feedback survey with all PAB members on the cluster panels as we move into that next round in May, because we want to ensure we're collecting all of that and having that theme of continuous improvement and evidence-based, what works, what's effective, and also aligning to as the chair pointed out, that feedback we got from HMIC FRS in our appeal assessment report. So we are considering all of those things and trying to make this as productive as possible and allow members to have a voice in this, because it is ever so important.
Thank you. And just I would, before I come to you, Deputy Commissioner, can I just check on the date, because Court of Common Council is on the 5th of December, not the 12th.
Oh, apologies, I've been incorrectly informed. We'll whatever date, the date of the
the point I was going to make actually is the date for Common Council changed from the 4th to the 5th, and I suspect that many members like myself now are not able to attend Common Council on the 5th. So it may be that you think about doing something online rather than in person on a different. So can I suggest that we get together and look at a sort of member session and what might be most effective for getting maximum number of members engaged?
Yeah, definitely. We'll
because the diaries change around a lot in December, and I'm just keen that we do engage.
Thanks, Chair.
I've got the rescheduled court for the 12th in the diary, so it might be worth checking that. Yeah.
Okay. My diary hasn't caught up. Okay, good. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. So yeah, I think if we take an action, Erica will make sure that we have the members session in for feedback. Erica, I think bearing in mind this is the committee to scrutinise this area, if Chair, if you're happy, there's a lot of feedback coming from this group. Perhaps we organise just a local policing committee online feedback one, Erica, separately.
Yes.
That might be helpful for members, and we can capture all of this kind of feedback just from this smaller group as well as wider members, because sometimes with members' commitments, we do struggle to get attendance at some of these workshops and feedback.
That would be very helpful. Thank you. Good. All right. Thank you. Town Clerk.
Item 7, we have the policing plan performance report for Q2 2025-2026. This is for information on pages 25 to 48.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll just give a few headlines from this, if I may, as we go through it. And Megan Cardy, our Chief Inspector Head of Performance, is also here for the difficult questions, of course. The detailed questions, I would say. So in terms of page 28 of your packs, in terms of all crime, you will see there that crime compared to the last quarter has increased by 3.8%, which is 81 offences. What I would say is there's three different lenses we can look at crime data through in terms of, well, there's many lenses, but the three that we focus on is comparing this quarter to the last quarter. That's probably, I would say, the least useful one, because obviously depending on what time of year it is, then crime data changes, but important to show it. The quarter comparison to the same quarter last year is much more useful because that takes into account trends and patterns. And then as useful is the rolling 12-month figure as a trend, because that shows you your longer term trends. But we will continue to report on those so that we're clear. In terms of,
just sorry to intervene on that point. I had exactly the same thought. I'm sure, like others, I'm much more looking at quarter comparing, Q1 to Q1 kind of a thing.
Yes.
So if you want to change the way that gets reported, I think we'd all be happy if you focus more on that and the rolling 12-month. I think that's,
yes. Okay.
Agreed. That's much more helpful.
And Megan and I have discussed, actually, we're going to update the pack, continuous improvement again on that, on a couple of those bits. So absolutely happy we can take the quarter versus quarter out, last quarter, because it doesn't really tell us too much.
No.
The main factor is we may keep it for our internal reporting. But the main factor is that within tolerance levels. But comparing quarter two to the previous quarter two, down 2.5% overall crime. and the rolling 12 months down 6.1%, which is more importantly and statistically 569 less offences in terms of the trend, which is important. So moving on to page 30, in terms of the summary, the two key metrics around keeping people safe in the city are, of course, the reduction and the response to theft and violence in the city, which are our two biggest crime types that impact the most here. In terms of the reduction of theft, looking at the rolling 12 months, that is on a -6.9%, so 342 less offences. And as you alluded to earlier, Chair, useful figure to call out of the deck there is the theft from person down by 11.3%, which is 37 less victims of crime over the last period. So a number of operational impacts, including our Operation Swipe, which is our phone snatch operation, making impacts and continuing to do so there. Our response to theft remains strong, with 95% attendance within the attendance rates, and the positive outcome rate still sitting slightly above the national average at 10.7% against the 9%, which of course is something that we do want to improve on anyway, but taking into account a number of those offences can include shoplifting and unattended bags and items in restaurants, bars and other places. In terms of violence reduction, the 12-month rolling is down 2.3%, and violence against women and girls in terms of the annual trend is also down -5%. And the reduction in violence response levels at 90% service levels, and I think I'd like to see those increase, so we'll be doing a bit of a look at those through our internal boards, just to make sure that we are responding as effectively as we can to those. But again, most of our violent crime featuring within the nighttime economy, and some good reductions specifically you'll see in the deck around Bishopsgate area and the evidence-based hotspot policing, which we are engaging with now, which saw some significant reductions, -21%, I think, from memory. I can't find it in the deck as we speak, but some very important reductions there in terms of theft and violence. I'll probably pause there, Chair, before I move on to counter-terrorism, in case there's any questions on those sections, if that's helpful.
Yes, Melissa.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner. I think it's really encouraging and important to recognise, you know, that the improvements made across many of those figures you've outlined. So that's very, very, very good to see. I want to ask a little bit more about OpSwipe, because with the success that you've been having, I think it'd be useful to know what we can expect in the future, and will there be further reductions? You know, very intense reductions made during the week of intensification, but are we going to see more of that? And is there a kind of a target that is part of your objective going forwards? That would be my main question on that, because I think that's really the biggest issue that my constituents raise.
Ben.
Thank you, Chairman. I was just going to touch on the section of the report that talks about a focus on risky retail premises in Bishopsgate. And this sort of goes back to my point on partnership working with BTP. And there's been some escalations from some of the businesses in the stations that theft is out of control now. And they're sort of getting to a stage where they're going to stop reporting because they just don't see the value in, you know, making sure that they're investing time there when it's just not really being addressed. Now, I have to say the overall report is very good, and I think we should really celebrate the hard work that officers are putting into that. But could we perhaps come up with a bit of a comms plan together on what that sort of risky retail premises focus is going to be for Bishopsgate, given it is such a big part of the overall city's crime stats? Thanks.
Michael. A couple of points. One, again, to commend the report. I think it's really, really good, and I think we're moving absolutely in the right direction. One thing on the report itself, I would just consider when we do comparators, i.e. whether we're comparing ourselves against the Met, whoever else, just let's create one standard comparator. because we seem to be gaming the figures a little bit when we compare against the Met, then we don't compare against the Met. So I would just look at it and say, do we compare ourselves against the top 3 and where do we sit, as opposed to choosing who we compare against, because sometimes that can look like a gaming piece. I think there's a couple of mine is a bit more sort of broad brush in terms of the sort of question, observation, thought I've got, is as the nighttime economy increases and as the city works to increase the nighttime economy, my question is, and this is an inferred correlation, will crime in some of those areas increase? And if that is the case, what's our strategy to work alongside that? Because what we don't want to see is, as that line goes up, then crime goes up with it. What's our plan to ensure that one stays flat as the city booms as a centre for entertainment, not just for commerce? Yeah.
Great, thank you. A few questions from me as well. I was surprised / amused to see the issue of phone theft described as an emerging issue in the pack. I think it's very much an established issue, and it's very good to see the reduction in phone thefts being seen. But you know, it's just a reminder of the importance of this particular issue. In the last few weeks alone, I've had people from 3 different countries saying, "Oh yeah, I come to the city, but I have to be careful about my phone." You know, these are people who are, you know, coming to London to either invest or to do business or to look at business operations. And this is, you know, the perception that you might get your phone nicked is having an impact on the economic success of the city. You know, it's very important, you know, not just from a crime and policing and response and keeping victims safe, but absolutely core to our economic success. That this impression that goes around the world that where somehow you can't get your phone out if you're on the streets in the city you know, we stop that. And you know, that will be a big focus of what we you know, what we need to do. A couple of other questions. Very good to see the increase in Ask for Angela testing and license testing. It would be good to know sort of an update on, you know, how that has gone, because you know, we've seen in the past few months more widely, and it's been publicised in the news, that the Ask for Angela scheme is something that a lot of bar staff aren't aware about. So are we getting a more positive response to that Ask for Angela testing and the licensing premising testing as well? So it'd be good, and perhaps a note for future reports. You know, when we mention things like that, sort of how has it gone? The other thing, and I understand it's not sort of in one of the priority areas, but something that used to feature in the old pack, and I think particularly given the geopolitical situation, some of the things that Commander Khan were talking about, that we don't have hate crime reporting statistics in this pack, and I would be keen, even if not sort of formally, that we just had, you know, and we're recording. If it's easy to include that, great. If it's and I understand it's not a priority, but I think it'd be good for this committee to understand and have visibility into whether, you know, what the trends are around hate crimes in the city as well. Thank you, Deputy Commissioner.
Thank you, Chair. So in terms of Operation Swipe, I'll talk a couple of bits through, and then if Helen or Richie or Uma want to come in on anything at all, feel free. But of course, it's a full systems approach to the phone theft issue here. So prevention, unless you've got your phone marked, exactly that. So prevention is really important. So that's a key focus. Communicating the risk, and Chair, note your comments. It's a difficult one because actually part of our prevention campaign is to make people aware that there is a risk of having their phone snatched, and if no one does, then that's part of the reason why we've got them down. So there's a kind of catch-22 situation there in terms of that perception, but certainly the prevention element. The seizure of e-bikes you'll see in the report is another element of prevention, because we know that's a facilitator for those phone snatches. the execution of warrants, the arrests of offenders with multiple devices, but also upstream investigations. And we've got a deep dive on serious and organised crime in the closed session that Rich is here for. We'll also cover our acquisitive crime elements in there. So a full systems approach to tackling the problem of phone theft. And just to cover off, absolutely, it is a risk here. I think that the message is it is on the decline and we are combating it. It is a risk across London. It's very London centric in the country as I understand it. And longer term, we need to work with the tech industry to try and improve that. And there are things that can be done. But equally, I would always go back and reassure businesses and people coming into the city that actually, in terms of crime, it is very safe square mile. It is very low harm in terms of crime. And whilst the phone theft is our biggest issue, it is one of a very small number of issues in the city. So, to offer that reassurance here in committee. Ben, in terms of the shoplifting, absolutely take your comments around the perceptions of that from businesses. When I talk to some of the bigger chains, they're very appreciative of the response they get in the city because we can and we have the luxury of being able to give a very good response. So I'm very confident with our response rates and also our policy around deployments to shoplifting offences, and that is owned as well by your DWO. So our neighbourhood teams own those shopliftings that come in that aren't, don't need an immediate response. They own those because the offenders are local, committing local crimes on people's areas. So I do think there is a point around a bit of a comms message around our shoplifting, and perhaps we can highlight that if we take an action in our next update, which we put on the corporation website after this committee, in terms of where shoplifting is, because I think, and I don't take away at all the frustration and the fear that can happen around businesses and workers in shops, but actually the figures are fairly stable. What's more important is how safe people feel and our response rates to those crimes. So we can definitely take those on. Michael, in terms of your point around comparisons, you're happy to go away and make that more consistent. I can reassure you it's not about gaming. It's probably more around what data we have and what other members have asked for in the past. But actually people wanted a comparison with wider London. I don't always think it's the best comparison because obviously Metropolitan Police have far more different challenges to us. But that's been asked for. I think what we should do is compare ourselves to national averages and figures where we can in policing. But again, of course, there is a uniqueness to us in this area as well. But consistency around the data, 100% agree, and we'll have a look at that. And Meg's got that, I'm sure. Nighttime economy is, and I've said this before, we want the city to be busy. We want industry. We want a safe, booming nighttime economy. But the reality is, if you increase footfall and you increase licensed premises, however well run they are, you will increase crime, and we can and we do work hard to keep a lid on that and reduce areas where we can. But having policed for 30 years, there is no silver bullet to solving that. If you bring more people into the city and more licensed premises with alcohol, you will increase crime, and those crime types are around people being victims. Leaving bags. You see them, bag mountings in pubs and bars, restaurants. They are people having alcohol and getting involved in violence they might otherwise get involved in, and they commit our violent offences. So really keen, and it's probably the best example of partnership working in the city is the licensing working at the moment, but it has to be a partnership approach. There needs to be at some point a question of whether we have too many licensed premises in a square mile and whether we should have any more. That policing has a voice in that, but not the only one. But I've worked in other areas where there has been cumulative impact zones where it is very difficult to get an alcohol license because of the saturation point of premises. And that's a wider debate, but one that shouldn't ever be not put on the table, I think. And then, Chair, to your points, I couldn't find the emerging issue comment, but yeah, that's not accurate, and we shouldn't be talking about the phone theft and statutes as an emerging issue at all. And yeah, with Ask for Andrew and licensing testing data, we can put that in the narrative. I'm sure we've got that from neighbourhood teams through Reframe in that as well. The hate crime one is an interesting one. It is one we of course monitor, and it is a priority. I don't want people to think it isn't. It is very small numbers in the city, and we've reported here previously. We treat them very seriously. They're all reviewed. They're all looked at. Most of them are connected with the nighttime economy, which doesn't take away from the seriousness, but they are connected with alcohol. Again, going back to the last point, and violence. Perhaps we could take offline a conversation about if we report that here. I'm just conscious of mission creep, and we've agreed our performance measures, our policing plan, and by proxy we can start adding. So I'm not saying no. I just perhaps if we get have a bit of time.
Yeah, and I'm not asking you to add either. It's just I think we need to keep an eye on hate, and I acknowledge that the numbers are small, but if there's a spike, we should probably know about it. And I just want to make sure that there's a mechanism for you to alert us to that.
Yeah, which is fine. So perhaps if we just go away again, so I keep saying taking action, but I just want us to be formal on the action so that we know what we're delivering. If we take an action to go away and look at a method to alert the committee if we have a trend spike pattern of hate crime incidents that we're concerned about, we'll bring that to you.
Great, perfect, thank you.
I thought we did agree, and this was our feedback, to add the hate crime stats when we were looking at this originally. So I agree with the chair that I thought it was something that was going to be irregular.
Let's look at it. I'm happy with the And Ben, did you want to come back or
just a really quick one on Ask for Angela, because I agree with you. I think it's a phenomenal piece of work. But one of the things when we were out testing, random testing last year, was we worked out that going into November and December, there was a huge increase in casual staff coming into the city to work. And that hadn't necessarily been through that sort of rigorous ongoing training and development. We also learned from talking to some of the licensees that they use an app. They predominantly use a single app to use those casual staff, and there was potentially an opportunity to build into that app some reference to, Ask for Angela and how we deal with these things. I just wondered if anything had come off that, and if not, could we perhaps look at that offline?
Yeah, so I'm sure we can. If perhaps we'll build that into Opt-Tinsel, which is our Christmas campaign. But I think Commander Khan wants to come in.
Thank you. I'll address this question first. We're going to increase the number of times that we're going to do op reframe, and during that op reframe, from all the colleagues around this table and elected members who have taken part, one thing we do as a test is actually testing the venues about their understanding of Ask for Angela spiking protocol procedures, and we target the ones where we have got concerns and issues that there may be the ones perhaps the staff are not fully briefed, and then as a consequence we provide a full debrief, which then is built into the licensing visits and plans thereafter. But what I will do, and Ben, if you got any particular premises that you would like us to pay attention to based on your feedback you're getting from constituents on the ground, then we will be most definitely looking to build that into our plans. But definitely this is the focus when we do the op reframes around Ask for Angela, the violence against women and girls, and also the spiking instances, to make sure that premises respond to those. And if I may, I can just touch on the point around OpSwipe. And Chair, you are absolutely right to raise the perception issue. I myself was abroad a few weeks ago, and I was surprised when I was also posed this question around London and the phone snatches, because we have got many people. This is a global city, and people have more interest here than perhaps they have in their own home countries. And what I will do on that point, I do believe there is a differentiation issue here, because people see London as London. We have got a working group with Home Office this week, and I believe this might be a perception campaign branding issue that we need to address, because the Home Office have taken phone snatches nationally as a national priority, and as a consequence there's a greater coverage now by the media, not just across London but nationally. But London and Midlands are two of the sort of threat areas across all 43 forces. But I'll take that as a feedback for this week. And Richie, who is the operational lead for OpSwipe, I'll ask him if he wants to add anything in terms of Melissa's question around our ambition for this particular area for the future.
So just on the quick one on the
sorry, I'll let Richie come in.
Apologies, my apologies, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of the ambitions, certainly the upstream activity is where we are particularly busy right now. When you're looking at the supply chains of how the profit is being realised from the crime, that in itself is giving us opportunities to identify in reverse those that are actually performing the acts on the street level. So giving us higher opportunities to disrupt more people. And certainly seeing it's very much a global market. And certainly, as I'm going to touch on a little bit later, I'll mention it now, it's how that particular acquisitive agenda is also crossing over with our fraud remit as well. Yeah. We're finding those that are actually realising the benefit from acquisitive crime are also very much engaged in the fraudulent obtaining of phones and like devices. Thank you.
Yeah, Paul, just on the data piece, it would be great, just as a continuation and maybe box that off, would be where there's data, put it down. Where there's no data, just say there is no national data available on this particular piece, and then I think that just carries that off. Reframe and the whole piece around that, having attended 3 of those events, I think they're superb events, and I think they serve us really, really well as a police service out there. And for my view, I guess it's the strategy and watching those 2 lines converge. The point I was trying to make was, you know, is our strategy to increase those as we get more and more footfall through the city? Are we increasing it? Are we focusing on that more? Because that, from that prevention point of view, and having had to sit down with people and talk to them about drink spiking, whatever else, the level of education we were providing at that moment in time was incredible. And for people, just as a click around the Bishopsgate area was really, really good. I think a point to Ben's point here around I took it to about the reporting of crime, and this is a slightly broader question, is what I said, what I'd hate for us to be viewed. I mean, great figures, great numbers, we're working incredibly hard on this agenda, is if the question to ask ourselves, and this is maybe one to ponder, is someone will ask the question, you know, are we capturing, where possible, as much of the information around crime as we possibly can be? Because again, that becomes a feed into where we are today. And what's our strategy to increase the capturing of victims' crime? Because the last thing we want a situation of is where people turn around and said it's not worth reporting. Because I had somebody who I know had a phone snatched and said it's hardly worth reporting because it wasn't in the city, it was somewhere else, it's another part of London. It's not even worth reporting because it's never going to come back this way. So, you know, are we capturing all the data that needs to be had, and how close are we to capturing it to make sure that what we're reporting on is almost the totality of crime? Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And I think in terms of phone theft and snatches, I'd suggest that's pretty accurate, because the driver for that is that people are often have these devices insured and all of that. But hopefully that I have confidence that reporting it helps with the patterns and trends for us as well. And we've got a slide on our crime data integrity later on as well to cover off that. But no, I absolutely take the point that we need to record all of that data. But I think in phone snatches, I think we've got a decent picture. Other crime types, you know, there are challenges around those for those reasons that you said. Chair, I'm conscious of time.
Yes,
the serious and organised crime thematic deep dive is a really big piece of work. So if I could perhaps canter through the rest of this pack so we can move.
Yeah,
on.
no, I intended to do. Yes.
Apologies. So counter-terrorism, page 35. I don't want to underplay the amount of work that goes on and isn't as visible, but definitely occurs. That would have happened this weekend in particular. A number of us were working on those events. There was a really good annual counter-terrorism protect event that you'll see. I just wanted to call out there. Our prepare work continues with constant testing and exercising of our response. Our prevent referrals, which are designated referrals around radicalisation, remain low but well managed. And in terms of the pursue element, good to see still high numbers of intelligence submissions by security personnel, that partnership working in the city. And again, just to highlight us moving towards a one counter-terrorism policing London model, whereby we retain our existing resource in the city footprint, but we become part of a bigger London wider network around the ability to do all of those 4 Ps as a joint approach. So just wanted to pull that out as well.
Great. Questions, Deborah?
The question I had was perhaps a little bit later on, unless that's the end of it. It was just the crime data integrity standards. I just,
Okay.
yeah, so.
Right.
Very quickly, this one, the change program and having this one across London, is that something that was city driven, or is it something that you, I guess I wanted to understand a bit more of the background to that, and does it impact the ability of the city to police its own, you know, to provide counter-terror policing in the city, you know, independently?
Could we take that in closed session? I can give you a bit more detail as a question, but to reassure publicly, all it does is improve our ability to protect the city and doesn't diminish. And we had very firm red lines on with the partner agency, the Met, on what we will and will not do in that, and they've been very accommodating to that. So it strengthens, but I can answer a bit more detail in close.
Great, thank you. Good. We'll move on to next session then. Productivity.
So page 39 talks around the 38 is our summary of victim satisfaction, and again a paper on the agenda from Kwanda Khan around the victims strategy, but good to see a slight increase around the satisfaction levels to 4.06 out of 5 in terms of those sampled. The victim code of practice, which is what we commit to in policing to serve our victims of crime, sits at 96.4% against our target of 90, always looking to get that as high and close to 100 as we can. And then positive outcomes, 14.2% against the national average, where we do have the data, of 10.7. And for victim-based crimes, 10.9% against the national average of 7%. Again, working hard to improve those positive outcomes for our victims as much as possible. But a very, very important element, and of course a paper on the agenda around that as well. So moving on to page 43, I probably won't spend any time, and again we probably want to think about this reporting because it reflects largely the community engagement paper that we've already discussed with the valuable feedback there. And then page 45 is the crime data integrity standards slide. I think we can probably simplify this and explain it a bit more. Again, these are our packs that we try and use without repeating and using more, but they do have to adapt. So yeah, if there's initialisms in there we haven't explained, then I generally pick most of them up, but apologies, I've missed those ones. Just to talk you through the table at the top. So crime data integrity, really important for us. And we got an outstanding in this, as you know, through Peel, to record crime properly. And there are a number of reasons for that. To understand our trends and patterns, but most importantly to make sure victims get the right support that they need for those that have victims attached to them as well. What this table is showing is so the total numbers there, 203, and sorry, the printing is squashed the numbers. 203 are those crimes that were disclosed. 199 are those that were recorded. So that gives us our 98% recording rate. And to reassure you, those 4 that weren't recorded are what our internal team find when they audit the process. So that's how we know. The violence, the sexual and the other are the same figures broken out into those categories. And the M100s is a particular category that's set up by the Home Office, which is a recording of an allegation of rape that isn't a crime at that point. It could be a third party report, or it could be a crime that's alleged to have occurred in another police area. But the Home Office dictate, rightly so, that those are recorded in a format until properly recorded by that force or established. So that's what M100s are. But happy to take any other questions, Deborah, on that slide.
Okay. Any other questions?
Just one comment. Just the quality of the reporting has driven the level of questions and scrutiny. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Indeed. I guess the only question, the only point I would make around the whole pack is, I guess the way I sort of look at this is a lot of it's run to the problem kind of. It'd be good to perhaps see some kind of summary about what are the key challenges that emerge out of this entire pack each quarter. You know, things that in particular are worrying you and that we might want to have a discussion about these committees. So that would just be a helpful summary to have.
Yeah, no problem.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you, Town Clerk.
At item 8, we have signage for crime prevention in the City of London. This is for information on pages 49 to 54.
Richard.
Chair, thank you. So this is a joint paper between ourselves, Chair, and colleagues in the City Police. Happy to give you a quick burst and then take any questions. Phil knows a lot about this as well, and if Loz is on the line or Helen, they know even more. So I'll just say three things. Members asked us to have a look at the use of signs in the city from a crime prevention perspective and as a way of kind of marking the city's territory, as it were. So three things. Firstly, to pick up a point that Deputy Commissioner made earlier about evidence base, I do still believe in the search for the Holy Grail, which is evidence-based policy making. I genuinely think that's important. What does the evidence say in this area? One, it's limited. Two, it suggests that targeted signage can be effective as part of a wider suite of activity if you want to prevent crime. So that's what the evidence, I think, shows. Secondly, I think we are conscious, Chair, this issue plays to the corporate plan objective about a vibrant, thriving destination for the city and the wider Destination City programme to make the city a safe and welcoming place for all those who live, work, visit and invest in. Your point, Chair, about this as the Square Mile as a good place to invest. Signage plays into that. I would just lodge that. And then thirdly, what we're effectively saying is we've looked at a number of the factors around signage. Page 52 of the pack, Chair, has got a series of options that we think may merit exploring further. The last point I am beholden to say is that there is no identified funding at the moment, both within the corporation or indeed within the City Police, to put in a dedicated way to this. But there are options there. Welcome members' feedback on them. Thank you, Chair.
Great. Thank you. Deborah, so before I come to Deborah, Deborah and I suspect others will have a similar question, which is around, have we spoken to the bids at all yet about potential funding?
Not specifically about signage, but we had a meeting with the bids last week on wider safety and security aspects, but we didn't raise funding for this in advance of this discussion.
Okay, I think that would be a particularly fruitful discussion to have. I sort of, as I read through this, it was just like the bids should be what bids are there for. But Deborah, I know you had further questions.
Thank you. If I could just ask two. It was really, has the Safer City Partnership been involved in this at all, especially the Crime Prevention Association? Just wondering. And secondly, about the planning and transport officers, whether they've been involved. I think from two aspects. One is about the work they're doing around poor cycle behaviour. And also, I think I'm right in thinking that the planning officers are also looking at signage across the city. So it'd be quite good to join up thinking on it. So that was just the 2 points, just joining up.
Any other questions? Richard?
So for reassurance, Phil from the community safety team has been part of the discussion about this, and Deborah, to your point around planning, yes, because that's where we got some of the points about the potential legal issues in which signage gets engaged and the differential between signs which are kind of static and unilluminated and signs which may be digital, which might take you into some more complicated places. So yes, engaged with those two people.
Thank you. Good. Thank you, Town Clerk.
Item 9, we have questions on matters relating to the work of the committee.
I've not been given any in advance.
At item 10, we have any other business that the chairman considers urgent.
None.
At item 11, we have the exclusion of the public. Do members agree to exclude the public?
Approved.
Please wait for a moment while I stop the streaming.